Today we're going to be breaking down our commercial gimbal rig. As a commercial director of photography for the past 3 years, I've been building out this kit and find out what works and doesn't work. We're going to be breaking down every single piece and building this from scratch, so you know exactly where to start. So when it comes to gimbal work, my camera of choice is the Sony FX3, and we already broke down a full commercial rig video, and this camera and this system that we already have is built off of that. We're not going to go really into the accessories on this. I just have the small rig half gauge on this, as well as a small rig rod clamp here on the side for a 15mm rod, as well as an HDMI clamp, which is kind of necessary, especially when it comes to gimbal work or setting anything up on something where you have to have a long cable involved. And then I just have a NATO rail on the top, which comes with the half gauge. The only problem that I have with the half gauge, especially when you have a handle or anything on the top, it tends to flex a lot, as you can see there. It's just kind of a thing that I like to use the audio handle with in certain situations, especially if I'm doing a lot of corporate work. But there is flaws in this, especially if you're trying to do something more heavy duty. I would recommend a full cage. So this is the camera that we're using. And then if we go to the gimbal setup, we are using the DJI RS3 Pro. I know DJI has come up with the new one, but this is strong enough for what we do. Even putting red Komodo on this with cinema glass, this works for us. So it's no problem handling the FX3. But in addition to the RS3 Pro, we have the Tilta Advanced Ring. And this has kind of been a game changer, especially when I'm doing gimbal work, because the biggest thing when I'm operating or have any type of gimbal work that I have to do, there's two things that I really run into a problem on. The first thing is just simply putting it down. I don't like using the standalone tripod that you have to put usually on pistol style grips, as well as getting low enough shots and just being more versatile and getting smooth tracking shots, especially if I'm working on a Segway or some type of other device. This is usually paired with the EasyRig or if I'm just using it by itself, but this with the feet has really changed it. The only really problem, which I'll show you guys later, is when you tend to actually move the gimbal, there is a lot of flex back and forth just because of the nature due to the flex in the frame of itself. But I'll show you guys that after. That's the only complaint I have with this. But this allows me to power all my accessories, especially when I'm trying to put a feed to a director, as well as to an AC or anything in between that. So let's start diving into this rig. Before we even put on the camera, there is one additional piece that we purchased for this setup. And then this is the plate made by Tilta, and it's basically a power distribution board for the RS3 Pro. So I can put a V-mount battery on here, then I have access to a 2-pin LEMO, actually 2 of them on both sides, as well as 2 D-taps. And this helps me run all the accessories on the camera. I don't want to run cables to any of the other ports that are provided on this setup. I just want to run everything off camera, then everything separate off the ports up here. So this is like the first accessory that we have. Included in the Tilta ring, we also got the V-mount adapter plate, so this runs power through the whole ring as well as the handles, as well as it gives me a splitter up here up top. A lot of people like to put them on the bottom, and some people like to put them on the top. I found the best place for me is to put them on the top, just because of balance as well as getting in the way down here. I don't like running it down there. So now we can start putting our camera together and putting everything on this gimbal. So that's simply our camera, and then I just know based off of all the times I've put this together that generally this plate position works for me, especially with the lenses that we're going to be running on this, which we're going to dive into in a bit. And the camera is usually the first thing that I put on. Now let's put on some of the different accessories we're going to start with. These are the batteries I like to use. I like to use a 99-watt battery. This is the ones made by Came TV, specifically on the top. And this is going to be running battery to the gimbal, as well as all my monitor, as well transmitter on the top. I like to use a smaller 50-watt battery specifically for this power plate. And this is only to run basically my focus system, which is going to be the Tilta Nucleus. So this slides on here, and because it's so small, it basically helps the center of gravity, because if I put a larger battery, it's kind of hard to balance, but you can easily fit a 99 on there, no problem, even balancing with heavier rigs. So that works for me. So the next thing that we're going to move into is our lens. For these, I generally run the DZO Vespid Primes. These are amazing budget and lightweight cinema glass, especially when it comes to the FX3. I use them a lot in my commercial work. I sometimes use vintage lenses, which could be the Nikon AIS that we have in stock, or just smaller lenses that work on this. I try to stay away from PL mount lenses because it's harder to adapt, as well as I like to run filters in the front, or with some of the accessories that we have ND filters in the back. So this is what I like to use. And the adapters that we recommend is we have this EF to E and this is by K&F Concept. It's a very budget-friendly adapter, and this is perfect for what we like to do, but also this is something that I picked up, and this is made by Visualex, and this is an EF to Sony E-mount adapter, but inside is a variable ND filter. So this is a 2 to 8 stop ND filter, and it just really helps with balancing as well as not putting anything on the front, especially when you're working with possibly bigger lenses that are EF mount. So this just really helps everything, even if you want to put filtration or even a matte box on front, this just helps that. So we're going to be using this filter in this case, just to showcase this. So there's my adapter, and there's my lens. And I don't need to put any filtration on top, so I can keep this mass relatively in the back where it's easier to balance. The next thing that we are going to focus on is all the accessories and everything that we're going to be putting on the camera. The focus system of choice for us is the Nucleus M. We've just had this in our kit for so long and we have no problems with it. So this is exactly what we're using for the gimbal. And then this just simply mounts here. And then I made sure that I have a battery in this as well as my SD cards, and I am ready to balance everything once we have the cables on. But I'm not gonna get into that yet. I'm just gonna mount all the accessories and then we can start talking about all the cables that we're gonna be using. So the next thing is that this ring allows you to power off everything off of the Ronin battery, but also with the 99 that you can put on through the V-mount. Some people have had a lot of issues with basically this supplying power as well as the V-mount, and sometimes their accessories short out and you lose power. And we kind of ran into that too, and especially with running the red Komodo on here and possibly running power from the ring to this, we just didn't want to take any chances with frying SDI ports or just damaging any of our accessories. So what we did is we actually took a piece of black gaff tape and taped over these contacts. So this is not supplying power to anything. This is just acting as a handle. I know that you can buy dummy handles for the Ronin, but this is what just worked for us. And then on the back of here, I have a Tilta cheese plate made for the RS3 handle. And then this just allows me to mount accessories on here as well as just extend the handle in general. So we're gonna put that on and that just locks in. And then we're gonna focus on the accessories that we put on the back here. And this is where my transmitter is going to live. For our transmission, we are using the Teradek Bolt 4K LT, and this just works for us because we've invested in the Teradek and this runs to our AC monitor as well as director monitor, and we just have a bunch of receivers already. But what I like to combo this is with the wooden camera V-Lock system, and this is specifically made for transmitters. So this is something that just goes onto the back of a lot of transmitters, and it has a lot of mounting options, as well as it has RE locating holes, which is mandatory for anything that we buy because we don't want anything moving when we're shooting. And I find that it's a very clean system. It's one screw, and it's just the standard when it comes to anything, especially mounting any accessories. So that just clips on the back there and it's ready to go. A lot of people would think that this gets in the way. It just puts that at a very high position and it never really gets in the way for us, and it really helps for cable management, which you're gonna see when I'm running the feed out of here as well into my monitor. The next thing that is involved in this is that the Tilta Advanced Ring comes with RE power distribution. It has a D-tap here as well as a USB, but that is not enough for all the accessories we have to run, because I like to run my monitor as well as this, and anything that's on the camera is already powered by V-mount. So basically I want 2 D-taps, but I can easily run a D-tap from this if I don't want to run a splitter on this. But then if I'm trying to change out my battery to a new battery, if I'm working all day, I have to unplug something, and that's just seen as wasted time. I just want to take off my V-mount and put a new one on. So what I'm going to be putting here is a D-tap splitter, and this is made by ZG Cine. And what I like about this one specifically is it has a variety of D-taps as well as a screw that just screws into the center. A lot of these D-tap splitters just have a common backing and nothing in between, but a lot of the new ones have this screw or even just a flathead in general, and it stays there. A lot of this time is like you're just putting on these D-tap splitters with Velcro, and then everybody knows that over time they just wear out and it just gets pretty annoying, especially when unplugging and plugging accessories. The second thing I really like about this ZG Cine is that it has a D-tap that can reverse in any direction. A lot of times when I'm applying or adding accessories to any camera, there's two D-tap ports beside each other, but then when I try to put on any accessory, I need a P-tap and a D-tap to go opposite ways. This just allows that flexibility when running into anything. So I just like to wrap this around here, and then it simply plugs into the back here. And now I have a full rail of power that can run 4 accessories off the top, but we're only gonna be running 2. And the monitor of choice when it comes to gimbals, I don't like to use a small HD 7-inch, that's what usually I use in my kit. I like a 5-inch monitor, and the monitor that I like to use is the Hollyland Mars M1. I know that this has a built-in transmitter and also receiver, and I can transmit this to another monitor. But I only have one of these, so this is what we like to use because it's just a nice, compact, and lightweight monitor. Any weight that you add onto this really adds up over time, especially when running a gimbal all day. It can be very taxing. So I like to use lightweight accessories as well as lightweight monitors. So on top of this, there's actually mounting points. There's a 3/8 as well as a 1/4-20, but these are RE locating as well. And this is just an ICANN friction arm that has spring-loaded RE locating holes that we just like to use in situations where I know I don't have to articulate this monitor a lot. Usually it's me putting it up like this when I'm in low mode, this on the side, the other side, and then just general for normal setup. I don't need like a big double knuckle arm just to be moving the monitor in very common configurations. So this small setup is more than enough for me when I'm doing work like this. The last thing that we're gonna attach to our gimbal before we even dive into the wiring is the system, which is called the Easy Tilt, and this is made by EasyRig. When you buy the Easy Tilt, it comes with these mounting, which are made for the Ronin 2 as well as this, and it allows you to attach a bar so you can easily tilt the gimbal. A lot of situations is you're gonna be hanging onto the handle with the EasyRig, and it's really hard to tilt in situations like if you're trying to tilt up. When I try to tilt up, I'm grabbing here, so that's where you want your mounting points when it comes to the EasyRig. So it's a bar that goes across and it has 2 strings that attach to these sides. So once we start using this in our commercial work, I remember the first time I used this on a running shoot, and it was in combination with the Segway. It made operating so much easier, especially getting low shots or any tracking shots. I could just put the gimbal there and leave it with the EasyRig supported and tilt up and down and rotate very easily. So it's not necessarily that you have to buy the EasyRig because that is a big investment in itself. But when you're going to start shooting commercials that you require an EasyRig for this, it's a very good investment to invest into the Easy Tilt because it's just something that you can add onto the EasyRig, and I would highly suggest it because when it comes to gimbal work, this is a necessity for us. So these are all the physical accessories that we have on our gimbal. We are going to now move into the wiring and showcase how I wire this and what I like to do. Then we're going to balance it. The first thing I like to do is open my screen and have it tilted up, and this is usually how I'm gonna have it all the time, and that's how I'm gonna balance the gimbal. But now we can start going into the wiring, and the first thing is an HDMI cable. And this is a HDMI by ZILR, and this is a really high quality one, as well as it just has the length and flexibility, especially when operating gimbal, because I'm going to be running that all the way up here. But I don't need a cable that's exactly that length. I need one that is going to be flexible, and the wire is not going to get in the way a lot. So this is exactly what we like to use. So I'm just going to move my screen back, and then I'm going to plug this into the HDMI port here. And this is where the HDMI clamp comes in handy, especially on a gimbal, because if this is moving around or anything like that, I don't want that to fly out. So that's rock solid. And if I don't want to damage the HDMI port, I'd rather damage the HDMI cord because I can easily buy another one. I don't want to send this camera into service or anything like that. This is going to run up into, kind of wrap it around the handle a little bit, and then have some slack available. And then this is going to run into my Teradek. And the reason I like to do this, I can easily run it into the monitor and then loop that out to the Teradek, is I like to prioritize what my AC as well as director's seeing before running it back to me. So if I lose feed, they lose feed. That's just the way I like to do it, and it's a lot cleaner. And this HDMI runs into that. Unfortunately, the FX3 doesn't have SDI, but that's what I like to do. And then because we are up there, we are going to run from the out port from our Teradek into the in port of our Hollyland Mars M1. And you can get different cables for this. I recommend getting a right angle cable, 2 of them, and that would work perfect for that, no problem. And then we're gonna run power to our Teradek. So this is going to take a D-tap to 2-pin LEMO. And then because I'm not concerned about anything moving, I can have that pretty tight, and we're gonna clean up all the cables at the end. But that is running all the power to there. And then our last thing that we're gonna power off this rail is our monitor. And what I'm using is another ZG Cine, and this is a D-tap to NPF. This is pretty standard, but it has that flexible cable that I can turn this in any direction I want just for flexibility. And then that's just gonna wrap around here. And then I'm gonna have some slack so I can adjust my monitor. But that just clips into the back there. I have all my accessories powered at the top here, and now we can move on to the only cabling that we have to do with the camera. So you can do 2 things here. I like to operate my gimbal off normal NPF batteries, but you could easily run a D-tap to NPF here, and SmallRig makes a really good one. We'll leave that in the comments below. But the only cable that we're gonna be dealing with here is the nucleus. And if you don't have the bottom plate, it's no problem. You can just run this off of your rail or any other power system. I just like to keep everything and one wire only going up to the Teradek. Unfortunately, I can't put the transmitter and everything onto here. I could and balance it, but I feel like that's a little bit too much, especially because I'm still gonna run a cable to here. So this HDMI cable is the only one that's going to be running to the Teradek, and unfortunately, we can't just have a clean wireless system. In the meantime, we can do that with this cable, and I like to run it down here and kind of wrap it around this 15mm rod, and then loop it around and loop it to the front, and then plug it in here. So this is just running this nucleus, and this off this 50-watt battery will last a couple days, but I don't have to ever change this, and I'm only changing the NPF battery here. So you could easily run a dummy battery into this if you didn't want to even change that and run all day, but I just like to use the proprietary Sony batteries. So now we are good, and we can set up everything to balance. So what I like to start off with, and everybody knows this by now, that the RS3 Pro has these automatic locks, which is amazing. And the first thing I'm going to start off with is my tilt. So I'm a little back heavy. So I'm gonna just push that forward. And then on the plate that we have here, it does have gear teeth, so I can easily adjust the front and back travel. And that is looking pretty good. The next thing I'm going to do is adjust this plate. And this has to go forward. And then now I'm gonna put it back down in this position and see if I have to adjust anything. Now it's sitting relatively still in kind of any position I put it on the tilt, it's ready to go. Next thing that we're gonna do is I'm going to lock that now, and then I'm going to balance my roll. So the last axis that we're gonna be looking at is the yaw or pan axis. And basically the goal when you do this is if you tilt the gimbal 45 degrees like that, it's not supposed to move. And then like that, not supposed to move. I have this locked right now, so let's kind of see where it's at. And we're just gonna kind of go forwards and backwards. Trial and error, that's way too much. Because these motors are so strong, this is more than good enough for me. I've had this off balance so many times. So now we can power everything up, and we are good to go. As a videographer, cinematographer, or any type of filmmaker, you want to develop a system that works for you. You want something that doesn't hinder your workflow. So this has worked for us. I hope this video helps you in building whatever rig that you want. If you want to see more videos like this, let us know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.